Good morning, everyone, and what an exciting day this is. On behalf of the town of Elizabethtown, I want to welcome all of you and thank you for being here to help us celebrate the opening of this beautiful new building. And to get us started, I'm going to ask our minister from the Elizabethtown Presbyterian Church, the Reverend David Holloway, to have our invocation for us, David.
Let us pray together. Heavenly Father, we pray to you always, asking for your guidance and your wisdom, always thanking you for your creative blessings. Today we gather to celebrate and dedicate this new airport terminal, and we thank you in advance for your blessings, for the many ways it will benefit our community. We're grateful this morning for those who envisioned this structure, for those who designed it, for those who labored to erect it, and certainly we're grateful for those who provided the funding. Our prayer going forward is that you will help us as a community to use this airport terminal in such a way that your name might be magnified and your will accomplished on this earth. Amen. Amen.
Would you rise for the presentation of our call? Permission granted.
Aye, aye, ma'am. Harry, colors. Colors reverse. March. Colors. Halt. Halt. Colors. Halt. Ready, 2, 3, set, arm. Order, arm. Post. Right, face. Holland left, march.
You may be seated. Let me begin by just saying how excited we are at the town of Elizabethtown about this beautiful new building and what it means for the future of us here in Elizabethtown as well as all of Bladen County. This airport is truly one of our greatest assets because it literally opens up the doors of the world to us. There are folks that fly in here every day from all over the country, and they may never go downtown Elizabethtown and they may never see any other part of Bladen County, but they're going to have a good impression of Elizabethtown when they leave here because of this airport and terminal building. And we're very grateful for that. We're also grateful that we here at the Elizabethtown Airport have something that not many airports can boast about, and that is our very own astronaut. Curtis Brown is here, his wife's with him. Curtis, you make us so proud. As most of you know, this airfield is named in Curtis's honor, and he has been kind enough to let us display one of his spacesuits in this terminal building. So if you haven't seen it, you're going to need to check that out before you leave here today. But Curtis is going to be speaking to us in a few minutes. But again, Curtis, we're so proud of you and so happy to have your wife and your sister here, I think. So thank you for that. I want to take just a minute to recognize the Airport Economic Development Board for all of their leadership and direction here at the airport. They're a group of wonderful businessmen who I might add are busy men who give of their time. They really don't have time to spare, but they do it because they love Elizabethtown, they love this airport, and they care about its future. And their chairman is Mr. Fred Tate, and I'm going to ask them to stand. Let's give them a big round of applause. I also want to recognize and thank our great town manager, Mr. Eddie Madden, for his great leadership in Elizabethtown and his great leadership at this airport. Eddie, thank you for continuing to help our town grow and this airport grow. Stand up and let everybody put a face in it. I also want to thank Mr. Pat Devon, who is our assistant town manager and was project manager for this terminal building. And Pat kept everybody on schedule and on budget, and that's a big job. Where are you, Pat Devon? Pat's outside. Pat, we're bragging on you in here. I don't know where he is when you need him. He's out busy doing something, I'm sure. But we're so thankful for Pat. I also want to recognize our interior designer, Mr. Rob McNeil from Raleigh, who did a fantastic job on this terminal building. If you haven't had a chance to go around and see it yet, you're in for a real treat. Rob, stand up. He's got an associate with him. Please stand with him. And last but certainly not least, I want to recognize our town board who continue to work hard to serve the citizens of Elizabethtown and to make our town a better place to live and to work. And would they please stand at this time? As you can tell, this project and this airport is a joint effort on behalf of a lot of different people. And at this time, I'm going to turn our program over to Mr. Fred Tate, Chairman of the Airport Economic Development Board, for further recognitions. And thank you for being here today.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We're so fortunate to have the leadership that we have here in Elizabethtown. It's overwhelming to see the response that we have had for this event, and it's exciting. At this time, I'd like to just recognize a few people who have had an involvement in major function in bringing this building to fruition. But first, I'd like to recognize the Bladen County Board of Commissioners and our county manager, Greg Martin. If you would stand. We have with us today Billy Barker, who is representing Congressman Rouser's office. And we have William Brisson. William is our representative. The airport here and airports across the state come under the direction of the Department of Transportation and the divisions of aviation. At this time, I'd like to recognize those in attendance from the Department of Transportation. We have Greg Burns, who is Division 6 engineer. Greg, back in the back. Philip Edwards with the DOT. Philip, are you around? Drew Cox, who is our engineer, sitting back on the back row. And Philip Edwards, I think he is here, he is with the DOT. We also have Michael Rutan, who is the director of the Mid-Carolina Rural Planning Organization. And I hope I pronounced that correctly. It's Rutan. Michael, if you're here, raise your hand. But again, the airport structures for supervision and development of our airports falls under the leadership of the Department of Transportation. And under that is the Division of Aviation, which we work hand in hand with. And representing the Division of Aviation, we have Ashley Clowers Lowry. Ashley, would you stand? She is our airport project manager. And ladies and gentlemen, she kind of holds the purse up there in Raleigh, so be nice to her. James Pierce is a communication officer that's here today. And Thad Howell is a manager of aviation services. One of the most important associates that we have in the operation of this airport and development, and certainly in the construction of this building, is from our engineers. And we use the services of the W.K. Dixon Engineering Company. And Paul Smith was supposed to be here. He's the Vice President and Director of Aviation Services. Paul was on his way back from a South Carolina Airport Association meeting and had a vehicle problem over in Lumberton, so he's kind of stranded over there. But we do have Bridget Williams. And Bridget, if you'd stand, please. Bridget is our aviation engineer. This lady resides in Raleigh, and for the benefit of people that don't know, the Airport Commission meets monthly, if not more often, and we meet at 7:30 on the second Tuesday of the month. She lives in Raleigh, and she attends our meetings, so you figure what she goes through to serve us and be here to hold my hand and to guide us. She is instrumental in putting the plans together and putting the project together and submitting the funds for requesting and receiving the grant. So we have a lot to appreciate Bridget for, and we thank you for being here. We have also a good friend and previous airport administrator or division aviation head, Richard Walls. He's left the state, but is with he's in private practice for himself as an engineer. Richard has been a long-time friend of this airport and helped us substantially. But Richard, we're glad to have you here. Okay, let's see, who else we got here? Marshall Sanders. Marshall is a retired Elizabethtown resident. He worked for many years in the Division of Aviation, and he is responsible for our name and signal recognition, and it's the Elizabethtown, somebody help me out, Elizabethtown Yellow Jacket football team. Anyway, that's how we ended up being that designation, and he got that for us. It's kind of difficult to receive those type things. For special recognition, I'd like to recognize the Greca builders. Mr. Cooper, A.G. Cooper is the owner.
Carter.
Carter, are you, thank you. His daughter is with him, Kate, welcome. And Shannon Hamilton. Shannon is the man on the scene. He is the man who has been here and supervised this. We've worked with a lot of contractors over the years, and this has gone as smoothly as any project that we have ever done. They got it finished in time, they came in under budget, we didn't have any delays except for the time of the storm that came through. But we do appreciate the quality of what you have constructed here for us. And let me tell you just a little bit about the building. It is 4,495 square feet. The cost for the contract was $1,400,000. It is, it is debt-free. By receiving the grant funds, we had a matching fund, but we were able to do this without any increase in tax or any use of tax monies. But we are the beneficiary of tax monies through the federal fundings of the various aviation programs. But we appreciate Brecca Builders and what you have done. At this time, I think it is appropriate that we recognize our patron, Curtis. And I have introduced a lot of people over the years, but I've never had anyone who has flown millions of miles in space, has piloted the space shuttle on so many occasions. We feel like we know you, but I'm going to tell just a little bit about you. But we're happy to have with Curtis today his wife, Mary, his son, Greg, and his sister, Rebecca Bowen. And we thank you for being here. But as you know by now, if you don't, he is a proud son of Elizabethtown. He was born here, so he is a native son. He graduated from East Bladen High School, and from there he attended the U.S. Air Force Academy. He received his second lieutenant commission after graduation from the Air Force Academy. And he served distinctively in a military career. He was pilot trained at Laughlin Air Force Base in Florida. Excuse me, that's in Texas. Del Rio, Texas. He graduated from there in 1979 and was assigned to fly the A-10 aircraft at Myrtle Beach, so he came close to home. He also is piloting, it flew as an instructor pilot at various airports and airfields around. He also has served as, there's so much here, honestly, and I'm not going to, I want him to tell about himself. But he pilots the A-10 and the F-16, I think I've got that right, and was a test pilot for them. Then he was selected, his career advanced and was selected as an astronaut in the NASA program in June of 1987. Oh my goodness, that's when his career soared. He is the veteran of 6 space flights. He has logged over 1,383 hours in space. He has been the pilot on the first number 47, STS-47 in 1992. He ran, it was again a pilot in 94, 96 on these space flights, and I'm going to let him tell about those. He was space commander in 1979 and in 1999. He had the distinction of flying the pilot. John Glenn, I'm so sorry. John Glenn was, if you remember, went back into space, and this was on the flight that Kurt carried him and occupied the flight station. Like I say, I could go on, but we are delighted to have our native son back. He has received many decorations and awards, you can imagine. He has received Defense Superior Service Medal, Defense Meritorious Service Medals 2 times, Air Force Meritorious Service Medal, Air Force Commander Medal, Air Force Achievement Medal, and NASA Space Flight Medal 6 times. I failed to mention he holds the rank of Colonel retired in the U.S. Air Force. Curtis, like I said, I value the opportunity to introduce you, and I'm sure you've had more eloquent ones than this. But thank you for being here, and at this time, we would love to hear some of your
Well, this was the best explanation of my life because it was at home, okay? So thank you very much. And Mayor, I thank you and the town of Elizabethtown, and you had the toughest job because you had the list of all the people that made all this happen. And thank goodness I don't have to do that because I would do a very poor job. But thank everyone in the room for being part of this airport, being part of this terminal building, and making this all happen because, as Mr. Tate said, without all the help from everyone, things like this do not happen. Even the folks from Raleigh, and is it Ashley? And I need to talk to you about a hangar, okay? I think I should have a hangar on my airport. So I need to see the Raleigh folks after this, but no, it's quite an honor, and thank the airport and the town for working with my schedule to allow me to be here. I'm kind of busy. We do some things for some foundations, and you may not all realize, but this year, we started last July, and we're going to culminate this coming July, celebrating the 50th anniversary of landing on the moon, Apollo 11. And some of you will remember that. I remember I watched that event on my television when I was a little kid, and Neil Armstrong coming down the ladder of the lander, touching on the moon, and my dad and I took these Polaroid land camera. Remember the Polaroid land camera? Yeah. Took these pictures of the television screen and pulled it out and shook it, for a minute, whatever he did, and pulled it off. But I still have that photo of watching Neil Armstrong come down the ladder and step on the moon. So this year we're busy celebrating the 50th anniversary of landing on the moon. We're the only country, and as far as we know, the only humans that have ever done that. So, by the way, I'll throw out a little plug here. If you're into coins, collectibles and stuff, the U.S. Mint released a coin January 24th called the Apollo 11 commemorative coin. It's at sale at the U.S. Mint, and it's really a neat coin. So if you're interested in that kind of stuff, they are available still. They're going fast, so you might reach out and get you one of those. But back to the most important thing, and again, thank you for the introduction. I had a great career. It all started here in Blaine County. I even have teachers here today that used to kick my butt. I won't point out any names, Mrs. Glenn. But no, I'm very, very proud to be from Blaine County, from Elizabethtown, and grew up just down the road here about 4 miles. And I remember one day I was driving from home up to the old Western Auto where my dad forced me to work my whole life with no free time, which obviously turned out okay. But I saw a couple airplanes sitting here on the side of the road here because we didn't have any buildings at all around at that time. And I go, airplanes, wow. So I turned around and came back up here and said, hey, there's airplanes here, what's going on? And I met two guys. One guy was named Hector Marino, and my sister knows him because she flew with him. But I said, what are you doing here? And he goes, hey, we're going to give lessons and stuff. And I said, lessons? You mean flying lessons? And they go, oh, yeah. And I said, well, I'm going to be one of your first customers. So I went to the store and told my parents, and they go, really? Okay, so how are you going to pay for this? So that was the next issue I ran up against. But it all turned out, I got out here on this grass field. I soloed out in a Cessna 150, and that was my first flying experience. And thank goodness I did that because that changed my life. Because now I did what I did, and it's hard to get into space if you don't know how to fly, so to speak.
but not in person.
So I soloed out and had a little deal with them because Campbell Oil, there wasn't any fuel on the airport at that time. So when the airplanes would get down to about a quarter tank of gas, I'd said, hey, I'll go fill the airplane up if you give me that flight time, and I'll bring it back full. So I would take the airplanes over to Lumberton and fill it up with fuel and bring it back over so they have an airplane for the students. So that's kind of how I started out flying, and I went through the Air Force thing. I had a great career in the Air Force. I joined the Air Force to see the world, and I wound up at Myrtle Beach. And so then you have to come home every weekend to see your parents, right? They expect that. But I used to fly the A-10 out of Myrtle Beach, and right over this area here, for the pilots, you probably know about it, there's a military operating area called the Gamecock MOA. I think it's Gamecock MOA, if they haven't changed the name. But I think the bottom is 7,000 feet. And God, I wish I'd known that when I was flying the Cessna, because I used to go get right in the middle of that, not knowing. I didn't know the rules, obviously, but we would fly overhead in the A-10s doing some air-to-air combat training, and then we also do low-altitude navigation training, where we fly at 300 feet or 500 feet and learn how to navigate. Back then, we didn't have GPS and all that magic stuff. We had a map in the cockpit, and you had to navigate using the map. The greatest place in the world was south of the border because it has an SOB on the tower. So you knew exactly where you were when you saw that. But if it's still there, it may be politically incorrect now. I don't know. But I used to drop down out of the MOA doing this low altitude navigation, and I would fly over the house at 100 feet or so and wake my dad up or wake up anybody that was there, and they would come out and wave. And I remember that it was a lot of fun. I'd come by the airport here, obviously see it when I was up above, and I never knew it was going to turn out to be the way it is today, which is really, really amazing, thanks to all you folks. I did do a small time at NASA flying space shuttles. After that, I left NASA, retired from the military in NASA, and went into the airline business, and I used to fly airlines with American and also a small company out of Minneapolis called Sun Country. And we did a lot of military charters, which was a lot of fun with Sun Country. We used to go into Cherry Point down here all the time, moving Marines around. And I would always ask Washington Center, for the guys that fly, that control this area sector, I say, hey, can I get a vector like 20 degrees to the right, for about 10 minutes? And they go, yeah, what's wrong? Are you having a problem? You want to declare emergency? And I said, no, I just want to look at my airport. And they go, what do you mean? And today, by the way, thanks to Mr. Campbell there, I learned that it's Elizabethtown Yellow Jacket football. So now I can memorize the identifier. I always, EYF, what does that mean? But anyway, now I know. Thank you very much. But they go, what airport is that? So I tell them, and they go, oh yeah. They look it up in their little book or their computer there. And I said, yeah, I just want to look down. That's where I grew up. And the center go, oh, okay, great. Well, let us know if you need anything else. So then we go to Cherry Point. And so I was a captain doing that stuff, and I'd make my first officer, my right seater, I say, I want you to find this, tell me about this airport, and make them look it up on the low chart, just so they could read my name. But seriously, that's enough fun about me. But again, I'm very honored to be here today. This is all about Bladen County and Elizabethtown and their airport, and I'm very honored to have my name on it. When that happened, obviously a few years back, that really blew me away. Yes, I grew up here, but I don't live here anymore. And for the town to remember me and put my name on the airport, which most of the time you have to be passed away for that to happen. So thank goodness that's not happened. But seriously, thank you very, very much. Thank you for allowing me to come back today and be part of the ceremony. I wouldn't have missed it for the world, and I cannot believe all the folks that are here to celebrate this, and Mayor and the county commissioners and the town commissioners or management, the airport board, all the folks that made this happen. Thank you very much for me personally. I do appreciate it, and like I said, actually I need a hangar, and then I'll get an airplane, and then we'll work this out, okay? But thank you very much, folks. Thank you.
As those small small token of our appreciation, here's a little something for you. But
Thank you very
for
much.
being here.
Thank you.
Sorry about the introduction.
Oh, no,
Okay, we're getting close to the cutting the ribbon, but again, I want you to understand what this airport means to this community. And just a little tidbit, the economic impact from this airport relates to around $15 million, the economic impact. We generate $211,000 in tax revenue. So we're contributing to the economy of this area. Again, this building is 4,495 square feet. It was at a cost, again, of $1.4 million and is debt-free. Thanks to the help of Ashley. We need some more to do. The vision that Eddie Madden has provided for this airport board has been unimaginable, and we owe a great deal of gratitude. He is constantly, when we finish one project, he has got us in two more already. Ashley, you know that. But we are scheduled, we have 5,000 feet of runway, and we are approved to extend that to 5,500, which will provide a much safer landing. There's 26 aircraft based here. We fly jets in here. Curtis, we have citations, and we're uptown. But we provide a function in this area when corporate people need to move personnel or product. They have this airport available. We service, for instance, the Smithfield Falcon flies in here frequently, bringing their dignitaries. When we had the storm, this airport was used as a launching area for assistance. And the Forest Service uses this. If there's forest fires, they use these to service the project. The pleasure craft that people have here and can enjoy using their private planes and so forth. But Ashley was kind of stingy with her money. She builds the building, but she doesn't provide any money for furnishings. So what do? You know, you've got to have these things. Got to need the decorator involved. So we have some generous donors who I'd like to thank and recognize at this point. But through the generous sponsorship and donation from Mary Green, we have the Ben W. Green conference room / boardroom. Ben was a wonderful inspiration. He was an early pioneer of flying in this area, had his early plane and a hangar here, and he served on my board with us for forever. And when he wasn't wanting to be a board member anymore, he was an ex officio member. So we cherish his and value what he has done for this airport. But please, as you tour the building, glance in there at the boardroom and the conference room. Mary, as a token of our appreciation, thank you so much. Again, we have an opportunity to honor two of the most important people to this airport. The family of David and Giles Clark have generously provided for the Pilot's Lounge. And Hope and Howell, is Hope here? We have a little token of our appreciation. To continue, I'd like to recognize one of my very best friends in the airport board and has served along with me from day one. He is a pilot. He's one of the best supporters of this airport that you can imagine. But I'd like to recognize David Clark, who has a presentation to make at this time.
Thank you, sir. What a great day. What a beautiful building. What a wonderful crowd. We're gonna have a good time. I'll have to have my paper because nowadays I can't remember. I will tell you a little bit slower there. Nobody had told me that they were gonna put mine and Giles's name on the college lounge. But I thank you all for that recognition. It looks like it's a pilot's line that they put a good pilot on there instead of two rank amateurs. But we're here this morning. This is a good thing and a good time. And of course, as you know, this terminal building is going to be called the Mac Campbell Terminal Building. And I want to go over a few things with you about my life and Mac Campbell and what Mac's meant to the aviation community here and what he has meant to the other type of development in this county and town. Now, first time I saw Mac Campbell was 80 years ago. I was in the second grade. There was a little boy in our room that had been bitten by a dog, and he was having to take rabies shots. Well, those shots were terrible, especially back then. And all of us kids in there knew that they shot you right in the stomach, and it was. All of us didn't want to get dog bit because you didn't want rabies shots. That was terrible. That was worse than the bite by far. Series of 19 shots. You had to take 19 shots. Every day that Clyde had to have a shot. Matt Campbell came to our room, and he was well dressed, comfortable, charming looking, and he said something to the class, and he took that little boy, put him at ease. Then he went and took him and went to the health department, got his shot, and carried him home. It helped that kid along so much. And it certainly impressed me then until right now. That just shows you that we're talking about a guy you put in the good guy column. He was all right. Just got this, the commentator wrote a book and said about the greatest generation. Well, Matt was certainly a member of that greatest generation, and he showed it in all of his life. He was always pleasant and charming and capable. When he began to approach adulthood, or got out of school, it was right in the middle of the Depression in the 30s, see? And so he came to Elizabethtown, opened a gas station and a grill. Everybody liked him. Everybody traded with him, and he was getting along good. Then something happened to him that hasn't happened to many people. He was the very first man selected in North Carolina when the Selective Service Act came along to go to the Army. The very first man. And of course he went and stayed through the whole war, and then he returned. After the war, he came back over here and engaged in several different businesses. Of course, the most notable one was Samson Blade and Oil Company.
Campbell.
You got to take your chances when you get it. Well, he was an oil company up down there. Campbell Oil Company, and which continues to be an outstanding business today. He was a good businessman and a good citizen. He invested himself in civic work and, of course, was very active in his church. He was always working to make Bladen County and Elizabethtown better. Mac was a giant of a political figure. He was figured prominently in several campaigns for governor. His motive there was to see what he could do for Bladen County, and he did it, and he did a lot for him. He'd always take a stand for what was good and was right, and he wouldn't back off. He was what the communist Louis Gouzard described as a great American. Since we're going to dedicate this as an aviation terminal building, I think we should pay some attention to how Mac was a true aviation pioneer in Bladen County, and the many things he did to promote and improve the use of general aviation and the young people he helped along with it. Mac was born just 13 years after the Wright brothers made their first powered aircraft flight. 20 years later, he owned an airplane. One of the very first people in Bladen County to ever have an airplane. There were just two here when Mr. Gaston King had one in a field up at Dublin. Mac fixed a small landing strip just north of 87 up there in what we would call town now. It started at where the Knight's End is and ended at Scout Lane. 800 or 1,000 feet or something. We talking about 5,000 down and going to 5,500. That was 800, and but he flew off of that field a long time. That little airplane that he had was a 40 horsepower airplane, and didn't have any wheel brakes. It didn't have any electrical system. It didn't have a tail wheel, tail skids, all it had on it. But he flew it, and he flew it a lot, and he carried so many people on their first airplane ride and introduced them to airplanes with that strip. He'd take that we were boys and lived across the street from that strip, and he'd take that strip, he'd take that airplane and fly it there. I know it must have been as high as it would go, but it looked like it was that long. Then he'd spin it all the way down. And that was thrilling to boys like us. And during the war years, of course, there was no general aviation activity in Bladen County. We saw plenty of military planes flying over and training. After the war, it was a few years before Mac could get back to flying, but he did and purchased an airplane again. At that time, Green Brothers had two airplanes and had established this grass landing strip on the same site this airport's located. And he continued to take as many people into the air as he could and do everything possible to influence others to use airplanes for business and pleasure. Here's a couple of examples of how he helped people. Now, Fred Davis, a long-time minister here, and a friend of everybody, was interested in flying, and he knew several other people was. And so he got up with Mac, and Mac arranged helped arrange an arrangement where 6 people could own that little airplane together. He figured out a cost schedule what it would cost to own it and operate it, and pretty soon there was an airplane here that 6 of us flew, and some of them are still flying today. He got that thing worked out. Incidentally, for those of you that fly and know something about the cost of it, at that time they flew that Tri-Pacer, including fuel, $7.30 an hour. There was another group that got, and there was at least 6 of them, and one time, I think more than that, had a little Aeronica out here. All right, he helped them, he mentored and assisted them as much as he could, and out of that group, there came 2 airline pilots, besides the benefits that were. Whenever somebody wanted to fly or talk about flying or needed some service about it, Mac was available. As long as his help allowed, Mac kept an airplane and flew when he could. Of course, we lost him in '81, but his family has continued to follow him in his Christian and civic and aviation endeavors. He left quite a legacy that is still growing today. In fact, much of the tax base represented by hangars and aircraft on this field right now are the result of the 2nd and 3rd generation. Okay, now, this building replaces a terminal that was named in honor of former Mayor Bill Keith. Dr. Keith was a key figure in getting this airport placed here. I want you to know that Mac Campbell had a big influence on Bill Keith's life. As a young man, Bill lost his father. One person that he counted on after that for advice and support was Mac Campbell. He was loyal to Mac all of his life. He was only one of the people that Mac quietly helped along the way. Dr. Keith never forgot that and appreciated it all of his life. It was a good and fitting move to put Mac Campbell's name on this building to help us reflect on all the good he did.
We have a small token for the Campbell family who is submitted. Brian, would you accept this on behalf of the family? Thank you.
Thank you, Nathan. Good man.
Few people know what this gentleman has done for me personally and for the airport. One of my favorites is we open our meetings with an invocation, and David is my standby, and he can deliver a sermon and a half. And we had our last board meeting in this facility, and I called on David to give our invocation. And he did a wonderful job of thanking for our building and for everything we've done. And one of our members said, he ought to do that at the dedication. So, David, you almost got shot out of the saddle here. But again, I'm going to direct you now to the other end of the building, to the front of the building, out this side door. We're going to officially cut a ribbon. And after that,
Everybody ready for this? Everybody ready? So you grab that side there. You do that. You ready? You look, Miss
outside for cake and some other goodies.